The stock market is crashing, and even MAGA Fox News hosts are now publicly panicking as the U.S. economy struggles under a new, painful, unnecessary Trump trade war, skyrocketing Trumpflation, and the looming threat of a Trump recession. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, you know it's bad when die-hard Trump loyalists like Charles Payne and Maria Bartiromo on Fox News are freaking out about Trump's disastrous mismanagement of the U.S. economy.
50% of the spending. That has masked a lot of pain out there. And now a lot of those economic numbers. Look at the GDP now. Thursday, it was we were looking at first quarter, 2.3%. Friday, it was a negative 1.5%. Yesterday, it was negative 2.8%. That's not all trade. That we're seeing dramatic, just free falls. Now, some of this is early in the first quarter, but this is scary stuff. So there's a lot more going on, a lot more substantial things going on besides tariffs, because listen, this is soft data. They haven't hit yet.
True.
Right? So the economic data that's moving the markets are in place and moving in the wrong direction. 50%.
So again, and I appreciate the fact that he points out it's not just the new tariffs, the 25% tariffs that Trump has imposed on Canada and Mexico, our two biggest trading partners, an additional 10% sweeping tariff on our third biggest trading partner, China. That's disastrous enough, but it goes beyond this painful and unnecessary Trump trade war. It's other things like skyrocketing Trumpflation, and again, the looming threat of a Trump recession. Maria Bartiromo, another MAGA Fox News host, is also freaking out about the state of the stock market and the economy under Trump. This is what she had to say.
Futures trying to stabilize this morning after a major sell-off yesterday. The Dow Industrial still negative, down about 37 points right now. The Nasdaq is down 10 points, and the S&P 500 lower by 7.5. This after stocks plunged yesterday, kicking off the month of March with the S&P 500 in negative territory for the year. The Dow Industrial is now down 649 points. That was yesterday at 4 o'clock on Wall Street. The Nasdaq was down almost 500 points yesterday. That was 2 2/3% lower. This on the heels of the expectation that tariffs were taking effect. In fact, President Trump's tariff plan went into effect last night at midnight. They include 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and 25% on imports from Canada, a 10% tariff on Canadian energy, and an additional 10% tariff on imports from China, taking the Chinese import tariff up to 20%.
Our three biggest trading partners right there. And again, I want to remind you, this is so important, that the current paradigm, the current deal that the United States has with Mexico and Canada, Trump made that damn deal. He signed it. He didn't inherit it from President Obama. He didn't inherit a deal from President Biden. He inked the damn deal in 2020 when he was president. And he boasted about, it's amazing. It's the greatest deal in the history. It's the greatest trade deal in the history of civilization. And now all he does is bitch about it and conveniently omits the fact that he was the one who created the deal in the first place. So inconsistency, hypocrisy, stupidity, forgetfulness, senility, whatever you want to say, just blatant incompetence from this administration. But I will say, while some MAGA Fox News hosts are freaking out on Fox, another MAGA Fox News host is trying to take a different approach because he's also panicking about the economy. But he wants you to blame somebody else other than Donald Trump. I want to play a couple of clips from Larry Kudlow, a MAGA Fox News host who used to be a top economic advisor to Donald Trump in his first term. See if you catch who the real culprit is, according to Kudlow, for the economy in its current state.
The Biden economy, what's left of it, looks like it's tanking. Tax cuts and deregulation from President Trump are so important. I sure hope we hear lots about it.
So there you go. Joe Biden hasn't been president since January 20th, but it's all Joe Biden's fault. It's all Joe Biden's fault. Yeah, Donald Trump is president now, but all the bad shit, that has to be Joe Biden, right? He repeats it in a conversation later on with Trump White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt.
Last one. What's left of the Biden economy is slumping so badly. It's just slumping. This is the legacy of the Biden economy. Will we hear? I want you to tell me, Caroline Leavitt. I want you to say, Larry, we're going to have lots of talk about tax cuts and deregulation and energy production and economic growth in the State of the Union message tomorrow. Upbeat.
So couple of things, just again, right? It's Biden, right? It's the shadow of Biden. All the bad stuff is because of Biden, right? Sure, he's not been in power for more than a month, but it must be because of Biden. Now, this same Larry Kudlow, this same dishonest asshole, this hypocritical loser, when Joe Biden was president and the stock market was doing really well, that was actually because of Donald Trump, said Larry Kudlow. Sure, Donald Trump wasn't in power. He hadn't even won the election, but it must be because of Donald Trump, because this is how these losers, these wildly unprincipled, hypocritical, dishonest losers think. If a Democrat's in power, A, there are no good things. But B, if there are good things, it's not because of the Democrats, because of some Republican somewhere that we like. Okay? The bad things, though, when a Democrat's in power, C, right, the bad things, that's all because of Democrats, right? You got to understand the flow chart of the decision-making calculus of the way to gerrymander credit and blame. Bad stuff under Democrats is because of Democrats. Good stuff under Democrats either doesn't exist, they don't exist, or if they do, it's because of Republicans. When a Republican is in power, all the good stuff is because of the Republicans. When the bad stuff happens, either the bad stuff isn't happening, or if it does, it's because of the Democrats. That's how Larry Kudlow and people like him think. Again, just wildly unprincipled, hypocritical losers who should be made fun of. As Aaron Rupar and others are pointing out, though, is the Trump slump. The stock market is not doing well. Representative Eric Swalwell went one further in this funny screenshot in which he's the downward red line in the stock market. He changed it to Donald Trump's signature, his iconic signature. So yeah, this is where we are. It's not good. CNN has an article about this. The Dow falls 800 points as Trump's tariffs threaten a dangerous trade war. U.S. stocks tanked Tuesday morning after Donald Trump made good on his threat to levy tariffs on Canada and Mexico, paving the way for a global trade war as leaders of both trading partners threatened retaliation. The hefty tariffs imposed by the Trump administration could contribute to a crash in the global economy, similar to the Great Depression of the 1930s, said Andrew Wilson, the Deputy Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, according to the Wall Street Journal. Our deep concern is that this could be the start of a downward spiral that puts us in 1930s trade war territory. The Dow fell by 800 points Tuesday morning, or 1.86%, and the broader S&P 500 slid to 1.87%. The NASDAQ composite was down by 1.68% after dipping into correction territory earlier. The VIX, the Wall Street fear gauge, surged to its highest level this year. As of Tuesday morning, the S&P 500 had erased all its gains since Trump's re-election in November. The benchmark index on Tuesday plummeted below its 125-day moving average, signaling investors are skittish, according to CNN's Fear and Greed Index. The broad sell-off in markets spanned the globe Tuesday in response to Trump's decision to go forward with tariffs. So, and it goes into detail about Europe's stock market, Germany's, Asia, Japan, Hong Kong, China, etc., and so forth. The 25% tariffs on goods imported from the U.S.'s closest trading partners comes after Trump also imposed an additional 10% tariff on Chinese goods, raising that country's rate to 20%. The broad-based levies are intended to stem the flow of fentanyl into the United States, said Donald Trump. But the impact of tariffs on everyday goods for Americans could stall the economic engine that drives U.S. growth. Inflation-weary consumers are already starting to rein in their spending as uncertainty ripples throughout households. Layoffs are rising, consumer confidence has plunged, and inflation, Trumpflation, is above the Federal Reserve's target of 2%. Quote, the market finally took the Trump administration at its word, and the realization that the tariff talk wasn't just a negotiation tactic is starting to sink in, said Chris Zacharelli, a chief investment officer for Northlight Asset Management, in a note Tuesday. China immediately struck back Tuesday, announcing tariffs on chicken, pork, beef, and some agricultural imports from the U.S., according to a statement from the State Council Tariff Commission. And then, of course, it goes into Prime Minister Trudeau, which we covered in a previous video. He has also announced retaliatory tariffs. Not good, folks. This is where we are as a direct consequence of Donald Trump's incompetence and his economic mismanagement. Joe Biden isn't president. And here's the thing. Again, I've said this before. I'll say it again. I'm sure some of you are annoyed, but we need to beat it into our heads. And we need to beat it into the heads of people in our coalition. We need to make them truly believe it. We are not obligated to adhere to Republican hypocrisy and Republican double standards when it comes to assigning blame. We don't have to let them set the narrative and set the terms because they won't do it fairly or honestly. Remember, they want you to believe that when a Democrat's in power, nothing good ever happens. And if something good happens, it's not because of the Democrat. The Democrat had nothing to do with it. It was because of a Republican somewhere. Everything bad that happens on a Democrat's watch must be because of a Democrat. That's what they want you to believe. But they're not consistent. They don't want you to believe similar things when Republicans are in power. So much of their power, so much of it requires and hinges on the rest of us, myself included, buying into this uneven paradigm. And if the American people actually held Democrats and Republicans to the same standard, it would be a hell of a lot harder for Republicans to win and hold power. They could still do it. It would just be much more competitive. They rely on these double standards. They rely on this asymmetry, and they hope that after decades of persuasive, relentless propaganda, that they've gotten you to buy it too. Don't buy it. Donald Trump is president. Trump swore to you that if you voted for him and he won, he would snap his fingers and end all this on day one. He is making it worse. He is 100% responsible for it. It is his fault. You have every right. You not only have every right, I would argue in good faith, you have every obligation to blame him and persuade others to blame him as well. Because we know if the shoe was on the other foot, that's exactly what they would do to a Democrat. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.